The cold October wind whistled through Pine Ridge Forest as Jinwoo Kim checked his compass one more time. His breath formed small clouds in the chilly air as he looked back at the three boys following him on the narrow mountain trail. The autumn mist was getting thicker, making it harder to see more than a few meters ahead. "Stay close," Jinwoo called softly to his scouts. At 25, he had been leading camping trips for 5 years, but something felt different about tonight. The forest seemed too quiet, even for this late hour. 12-year-old Hyunwoo walked closest behind him, his small flashlight shaking slightly in his nervous hands. The boy had only joined their scout group 3 months ago and was still getting used to night hikes in the mountains. Behind him, 14-year-old Tae-hyun moved with more confidence, while 16-year-old Minho brought up the rear, always. Watching out for the younger boys, they had been walking for almost an hour when Hyunwoo suddenly stopped. "Hyung, did you hear that?" he whispered, using the Korean word for older brother that all the younger scouts used when talking to their leaders. Jinwoo raised his hand quickly, telling everyone to be quiet. They all stood still, listening carefully to the sounds of the dark forest around them. At first there was only the usual night sounds, wind moving through the pine trees, small animals rustling in the dead leaves, and the distant sound of water flowing over rocks. Then they heard it again. It was faint, but unmistakable. The sound of someone crying. Not the loud crying of an angry child, but the quiet, desperate sobbing of someone who was truly scared and alone. "Someone is out there," Minho said quietly, stepping forward to stand. Next to Jinwoo. Jinwoo nodded, his mind already working through the safety rules he had learned in his training. When you find someone in the wilderness who might be hurt or lost, you help them, but you also keep your own group safe. "You three stay right here," he told the boys. "Keep your flashlights on and stay together. I am going to look." "But Hyung," Tae-hyun started to say. "No arguments," Jinwoo said firmly. "Wait here." He followed the sound of crying through the thick mist, pushing aside low branches and stepping carefully over fallen logs. The crying seemed to be coming from somewhere very close, but the fog made it hard to tell exactly where. His flashlight beam moved back and forth, looking for any sign of movement. Then he saw something that made him stop. About 10 meters ahead, there was a huge pine tree that had fallen across the forest floor. The tree was so big that it had created a natural shelter underneath when it fell. And from that shelter came the soft sound of frightened sobbing. "Hello?" Jinwoo called out gently. "Are you hurt? I am here to help you." The crying stopped immediately. For a moment, the forest was completely silent. Then, very quietly, a small voice answered. "Please do not hurt me," the voice said in English, but with an accent that Jinwoo could not recognize. "I will not hurt you," Jinwoo promised, moving closer slowly. "I am a scout leader. Are you lost?" He pointed his flashlight toward the fallen tree and saw something that made his heart skip. Huddled underneath the massive trunk was a small boy, probably no more than 8 years old. But this was not an ordinary lost child. The boy was wearing clothes that seemed to change color in the light of Jinwoo's flashlight. One moment they looked blue, then green, then almost silver. The material was unlike anything Jinwoo had ever seen before. It looked smooth and seemed to shine with its own light. But that was not the strangest part. The child's dark hair was covered with some kind of substance that glowed with a soft blue color, like tiny stars had been scattered through his hair. And when the boy looked up at Jinwoo, his eyes reflected the flashlight beam like the eyes of a wild animal. "My name is Jinwoo," he said as calmly as he could. "What is your name?" The boy looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to trust him. His whole body was shaking either from cold or fear, probably both. There were strange marks on his arms that also glowed with the same blue light as his hair. "Kyle," the boy whispered finally. "Kyle, are you hurt?" Jinwoo asked, kneeling down to be at the same level as the frightened child. Kyle shook his head slowly, but then looked over his shoulder into the dark forest behind him. His eyes were wide with terror. "They are still looking for me," he said in that strange accent. "They want to take me back." "Who is looking for you?" Jinwoo asked. Kyle looked directly into Jinwoo's eyes and spoke 4 words that would change everything. "They're hunting me still." The way the boy said those words made Jinwoo's blood feel cold. This was not the voice of a child playing games or making up stories. This was real fear, the kind of fear that comes from facing something truly dangerous. Behind him, Jinwoo could hear his 3 scouts calling his name softly, worried about why he was taking so long. He needed to get back to them, but he could not leave this strange, frightened child alone in the forest. Back at their small campsite, Jinwoo tried to get his old radio to work, while the 3 scouts sat around their small fire with the strange boy named Kyle. The radio made crackling sounds, but no clear voices came through. The mountains were too high and the mist too thick for good signals. "Here, try some of this," Minho said kindly, offering Kyle a piece of dried rice cake from his backpack. The boy looked at the food carefully, as if he had never seen anything like it before. He took a small bite and his eyes widened with surprise. "It is good," Kyle said slowly, his voice still carrying that unusual accent that none of them could place. "Thank you." Hyunwoo, who was always curious about everything, scooted closer to Kale. "Where are you from? Your clothes are really weird." He pointed at the strange material that still seemed to change colors in the firelight. Kale looked around at all 4 of them, his young face very serious. He seemed to be thinking carefully about what to say, as if every word was important, and he did not want to waste any of them. "My people," he began slowly, "we are called Vilix. We travel between stars, trading things with different worlds." He paused, watching their faces to see how they would react to his words. Taehyun laughed and shook his head. "Come on, you do. Not have to make up stories. Just tell us where you really live. Are you from Seoul? Busan, maybe?" But Kyle continued talking as if Taehyun had not said anything. 3 days ago, bad people came to our ship. They are called Zephyrians. They are very tall and have skin like lizards. They attack peaceful ships and take children to make them work as slaves. Jinwoo stopped trying to fix the radio and came over to sit with the group. Something about the way Kyle spoke made him pay attention. The boy was not talking like someone making up a story. He spoke like someone remembering something terrible that had really happened. "They killed my parents first," Kale said quietly, staring into the fire. "Then they came for me and my sister Somin. She was only 10 years old, but she fought them, so I could run away. She told me to hide in the escape pod and crash it on this planet." The blue glow in Kyle's hair seemed to get brighter when he talked about his sister. Tears started to roll down his cheeks, but they were not normal tears. They glowed with the same soft blue light. "This is crazy," Taehyun said, but his voice was not as sure as before. "People cannot travel between stars, and your tears are glowing blue. That is not normal." Kyle wiped his glowing tears with the back of his hand and looked directly at Taehyun. "You think I am lying?" "Well, yes," Taehyun said. "I mean, it is a good story, but it is not real." Kyle stood up slowly and walked over to a large pine tree at the edge of their campsite. The tree was thick and old, with rough bark that looked almost black in the dim light from their fire. "Watch," Kyle said simply. He placed his small hand flat against the tree trunk. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, his hand began to sink into the bark as if the solid wood was made of water. The scouts watched in complete silence as Kyle's entire hand disappeared into the tree, then his arm up to his elbow. Hyunwoo made a small, gasping sound. Minho dropped the piece of food he had been eating. Taehyun's mouth fell open, and he could not speak. Kyle pulled his arm back out of the tree trunk, which looked completely normal with no hole or mark where his hand had been. He walked back to the fire and sat down again, as if what he had just done was perfectly normal. "How did you do that?" Jinwoo asked quietly. "All Valek's children can do this," Kyle explained. "We can make our bodies become like air, so we can pass through solid things. It helps us hide when there is danger. But it only works when we are young. When we grow up, we lose this ability." The 4 humans sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what they had just seen. Everything they thought they knew about the world had just changed in a few seconds. "There is more," Kyle said. "Our ship is hidden in the deep forest. The Zephyrians have been looking for it, but they cannot find it because we have technology. That makes it invisible. I can show you where it is." Jinwoo looked at his 3 scouts. All of them were staring at Kale with wide eyes, still trying to believe what they had seen. You want us to go with you into the dark forest to see a spaceship? Minho asked. Kyle nodded. I want you to believe me, and I want you to understand why the Zephyrians are so dangerous. They will not stop looking for me. They never give up when they are hunting someone. Taehyun, who had been so sure that Kyle was lying, now looked scared. If they are really hunting you, then we are all in danger just by being near you. Yes, Kyle said honestly. I am sorry. I did not want to bring danger to you, but I was so scared and alone. I heard your voices and thought maybe you could help me. Jinwoo made a decision. Show us the ship. The morning sun was just starting to come up through the thick pine trees when Jinwoo woke up to a sound he had never heard before. It was like thunder, but it came in short bursts instead of long rumbles. He sat up quickly in his sleeping bag and looked around their small camp. Kyle was already awake, sitting by the cold ashes of their fire. The strange boy's eyes were wide with fear, and the blue glow in his hair was much brighter than it had been the night before. They found me, Kyle whispered. The Zephyrians are here. Jinwoo grabbed his binoculars from his backpack and looked in the direction where the strange thunder sounds were coming from. What he saw through the lenses made his hands shake. About 2 kilometers away, bright red flashes of light were hitting the forest. Every time there was a flash, a group of tall pine trees would simply disappear. Not fall down, not catch fire, but completely vanish as if they had never been there at all. Moving between the trees were creatures that looked like something from a nightmare. They were much taller than any human, maybe 7 feet high, and their skin looked like the scales of a large lizard. The creatures moved in a straight line through the forest, and everywhere they went, they destroyed everything in their path. Wake. Hap, wake up now, Jinwoo called to his 3 scouts, shaking them roughly. Minho sat up first, followed by Taehyun and little Hyunwoo. All 3 boys looked confused and scared when they saw the fear on Jinwoo's face. What is wrong, Hyung? Hyunwoo asked, rubbing his eyes. Look, Jinwoo said, handing the binoculars to Minho. Minho looked through the binoculars for only a few seconds before his face went pale. Those are not people, he said quietly. What are those things? Zephyrians, Kyle said, his voice barely louder than a whisper. For they hunt in groups of 5 or 6. They have weapons that can destroy anything. Trees, rocks, buildings, people. Nothing can stop their red light weapons. Taehyun took the binoculars next and watched the creatures moving through the forest. They are coming this way, he said. They are moving in a straight line toward us. Jinwoo felt his heart beating very fast. He thought about his grandfather, who had fought in the Korean War when he was just a young man. His grandfather had told him many stories about fighting against enemies who had better weapons and more soldiers. Sometimes you cannot wait for help to come, his grandfather had always said. Sometimes you have to use your brain instead of your strength. Jinwoo made the most important decision of his life. Listen to me very carefully, he told the 3 boys. We are not going to run away, we are going to fight. Fight those monsters? Hyunwoo asked, his voice shaking. But they are huge, and they have those terrible weapons. Yes, we are going to fight them, Jinwoo said. But we are not going to fight them the way they expect. We are going to fight them the way Korean fighters have always fought against stronger enemies. Minho understood what Jinwoo meant right away. His own great-grandfather had been a resistance fighter during the Japanese occupation of Korea. You mean guerrilla fighting? Hit them and then run away and hide? Exactly, Jinwoo said. We know these mountains. We know where to hide, where to set traps, how to move without making noise. They are strangers here. They do not know the land like we do. Kyle looked up at Jinwoo with hope in his strange, glowing eyes. You will really try to protect me? We will protect you, Jinwoo promised. But you have to help us too. Can you use your ability to pass through things to help us fight them? Kale nodded slowly. I can try, but I am scared. When I am very scared, sometimes my ability does not work properly. That is okay, Jinwoo said. We are all scared, but we are going to be smart and brave. He quickly started giving orders to his scouts. Minho, you know the most about the trails in this area. I want you to think of places where we can hide and places where we can set traps. Taehyun, you are good with ropes and knots. Think about ways we can make the Zephyrians fall. Down or get tangled up. Hyunwoo, you have the best aim with your slingshot. Find rocks that are good for throwing. The three boys immediately started working, packing up their camp and gathering anything that might be useful as weapons or tools. Even though they were scared, they trusted their leader and wanted to help protect Kale. What about calling for help on the radio? Taehyun asked while he was coiling up their climbing rope. The radio still does not work, Jinwoo said. And even if it did, who would believe us and how long would it take for help to come? Those creatures will find us long before anyone else gets here. As they worked, the red flashes of light got closer and closer. The sound of trees being destroyed got louder. Sometimes they could hear other sounds too, strange clicking and hissing noises that must have been the Zephyrians talking to each other. How much time do we have? Minho asked. Jinwoo looked through the binoculars again. The creatures were moving slowly but steadily through the forest, destroying everything in their path. Maybe 1 hour, he said. Maybe less. Kyle stood up and looked in the direction of the approaching monsters. They will never stop hunting me, he said quietly. Even if you help me escape today, they will keep looking until they find me. Then we make sure they do not find you, Jinwoo said firmly. We are going to show these aliens what happens when they try to hurt children in our forest. The Zephyrians moved through the forest like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. They had been hunting other planets for so long that they thought all creatures would be easy to catch. On most worlds, when they arrived, the people would run away in fear or try to fight them with simple weapons that could not hurt their thick scales. But these Earth children were different, and the aliens did not understand that yet. Taehyun was the first to put their plan into action. His father had been a soldier in the Korean army and had taught him many tricks about hiding and confusing enemies. Taehyun took a long tree branch and dragged it behind him as he walked, making deep marks in the soft forest ground. But instead of following the trail he was making, he carefully stepped only on rocks and fallen logs that would not show his footprints. The fake trail led toward the east, toward the deeper part of the forest, where there were many caves. But Taehyun and the others were actually moving north, where the ground was rocky and hard to track. The Zephyrians will follow the fake trail, Taehyun whispered to Minho as they climbed carefully over a pile of large stones. They will think, we went into the caves. Minho nodded and put his hands around his mouth. He made a sound like a Korean mountain bird calling to its mate. The sound echoed through the trees, and a few seconds later the same call came back from where Jinwoo and Hyunwoo were hiding with Kyle. That means they are safe, Minho told Taehyun. My grandfather taught me these bird calls when I was little. He used them when he was hunting in these same mountains. The Zephyrians heard the bird calls too, but to them it sounded like normal forest animals. They did not know that the sounds were actually the human children talking to each other. From their hiding place behind a large rock, Jinwoo watched the aliens through his binoculars. There were 5 of them, just like Kale had said. They were even more frightening up close. Their scales were dark green and black, and their eyes were yellow like a snake's eyes. Each one carried a weapon that looked like a long metal stick. But Jinwoo knew these were the terrible red light weapons that could destroy anything. They are following Taehyun's fake trail, Jinwoo whispered to Hyunwoo and Kyle. But they will figure out the trick soon. One of the Zephyrians stopped walking and pulled out a small device that looked like a flat piece of metal. The device started making soft beeping sounds and showing colored lights. The alien moved the device back and forth, and the beeping got faster when it pointed in certain directions. That is a scanner, Kyle whispered. It can find living things even when they are hiding. It will find us soon. Hyunwoo looked at the scanner and remembered a story from his Sunday school class. It was about a young boy named David who had to fight a giant warrior named Goliath. David was much smaller and weaker than the giant, but he won the fight by using his slingshot to hit Goliath in the head with a stone. I have an idea, Hyunwoo whispered. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his slingshot. It was not a fancy one, just a simple Y-shaped piece of wood with a rubber band attached. His grandfather had made it for him when he was 8 years old, and he had practiced with it every day for 4 years. Hyunwoo picked up a sharp stone from the ground and put it in his slingshot. The Zephyrian with the scanner was about 30 meters away, but that was not too far for a good shot. He had hit targets at that distance many times before. What are you doing? Jinwoo asked quietly. David killed Goliath with a slingshot, Hyunwoo whispered back. Maybe I can break their scanner. He pulled back the rubber band as far as it would go and aimed carefully at the small device in the alien's hand. He had to be very quiet and very still. If he missed, the Zephyrians would know exactly where they were hiding. Hyunwoo took a deep breath and let the stone fly. The stone hit the scanner perfectly, right in the center where all the colored lights were flashing. There was a bright spark and a small puff of smoke. The device made a loud crackling sound and then went completely dark. The Zephyrian holding the scanner made an angry hissing sound and shook the broken device. The other aliens gathered around, making clicking and hissing noises that sounded like they were asking questions. I cannot believe that worked, Hyunwoo whispered, staring at his simple wooden slingshot. Their technology is advanced, but it is still just machines, Kyle said, sounding surprised. And machines can break. Jinwoo felt hope growing in his chest. Maybe they really could fight these monsters. If we can break their scanner, maybe we can break their weapons too. The Zephyrians were now arguing among themselves. Without their scanner, they could not track the humans as easily. They would have to search by sight and sound, which meant the children had a much better chance of staying hidden. We need to keep moving, Jinwoo said. They will be angry now, and angry enemies. Make mistakes. As they crept quietly through the forest, staying low and moving from rock to rock, Hyunwoo looked at his slingshot with new respect. His grandfather had always told him that the old ways were sometimes the best ways, even when fighting against new technology. David beat Goliath, he whispered to himself. Maybe we can beat these aliens too. After hours of running and hiding, the Zephyrians had pushed Jinwoo and his group toward the edge of the forest. There were steep cliffs ahead, and no more places to hide. Jinwoo knew they would have to make their final stand here, in this narrow valley between two rocky hills. He looked around and recognized the place. His grandfather had brought him here many years ago and told him stories about the Korean War. This was the same valley where Korean soldiers had fought against Chinese forces in 1951. The Korean soldiers had been outnumbered, but they knew the land better than their enemies. This is where we fight, Jinwoo told his scouts. This valley has seen battles before. Korean fighters won here once, and we will win here too. The valley was narrow, only about 50 meters wide, with steep rocky walls on both sides. At the far end where the valley opened up, there were loose rocks and boulders that looked like they could fall easily. It was the perfect place for a trap. Listen to me, Jinwoo said to Minho, Taehyun, and Hyunwoo. Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers fought enemies who had better weapons and more soldiers. But they won because they were smart, and because they never gave up. Today we do the same thing. Minho understood immediately. His great-grandfather had told him stories about fighting the Japanese soldiers who occupied Korea. We use the land against them, just like our ancestors did. Exactly, Jinwoo said. We are not just fighting for Kale anymore. We are showing these aliens what humans can do when we refuse to surrender. They had maybe 30 minutes before the Zephyrians found them. Jinwoo quickly gave each scout a job to do, using all the skills they had learned in their years of camping and hiking. Minho was the best at climbing and working with ropes. Jinwoo sent him up the rocky wall on the left side of the valley. Use your climbing rope to tie the loose rocks together, Jinwoo told him. When I give the signal, pull the rope and make all those rocks fall down at the same time. Minho nodded and started climbing quickly up the steep wall, carrying his rope and some metal clips he used for rock climbing. Taehyun was good at making fires and knew how to control them safely. I want you to gather dry branches and leaves, Jinwoo told him. Make 3 separate piles at different places in the valley. When the Zephyrians come, we will light the fires to make thick smoke. The smoke will make it hard for them to see us. Taehyun ran around the valley, collecting dead wood and dry grass. He used techniques he had learned in scout camp to build fires that would make lots of smoke but not spread out of control. Hyunwoo had the most important job of all. After breaking the alien scanner with his slingshot, everyone knew he was their best shot. You hide behind that big rock in the middle of the valley, Jinwoo told him. When the fighting starts, aim for their weapons. Try to break as many as you can. Hyunwoo gathered a pile of the sharpest, hardest stones he could find. He tested each one with his slingshot to make sure it would fly straight. What about me? Kyle asked. How can I help? Jinwoo knelt down so he was at the same level as the scared alien boy. You can do something none of us can do. You can pass through solid things. When the fighting gets bad, I want you to use your ability to confuse the Zephyrians. Appear behind them, then disappear again. Make them think you are in many places at once. Kyle looked nervous, but he nodded. I will try. But I am still very scared. We are all scared, Jinwoo said honestly. But being scared is okay. Being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do the right thing, even when you are scared. As they finished their preparations, they could hear the Zephyrians getting closer. The aliens were making their clicking and hissing sounds as they communicated with each other. They were moving more carefully now, checking behind every tree and rock. They are angry that we broke their scanner, Kyle said. They are not used to prey that fights back. Jinwoo climbed up to a high rock where he could see the whole valley. He had his binoculars ready and some large stones that he could throw down on the aliens. Remember, he called quietly to his scouts, we fight together. When one of us is in trouble, the others help. That is how we win. The first Zephyrian appeared at the entrance to the valley. It was even bigger than Jinwoo had thought, maybe 8 feet tall instead of 7. Its yellow eyes looked around the valley carefully, and it held its red light weapon ready to fire. Then the other 4 aliens appeared behind the first one. They spread out across the width of the valley and started moving forward slowly. They knew their prey was trapped here somewhere. This is it, Jinwoo whispered to himself. Just like grandfather's stories. The few against the many, the weak against the strong. He took a deep breath and got ready to give the signal to start the battle. In a few seconds they would find out if 4 human children and 1 alien boy could defeat 5 Zephyrian warriors. The final fight for Pine Ridge was about to begin.